one of the big gaps I see today, and I need to share this with you, is the process itself. There's zero question in my mind. Whatever's broke in business development can be fixed. Zero. So I don't care what your situation is; it can be fixed. The key though is there are other things that prevent business development from reaching its potential that you should be aware of.
Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me another episode of the Golden Wrench Podcast, where I get to talk to, well, anybody and everybody I want to talk to when it comes to the fixed ops side of the business. And boy, do I have a guest today, guys. I am so excited. We're talking about a wealth of information and just knowledge and passion about the fixed ops side of the business. But hey, look, we can't make cool content like this without our amazing sponsors. And here's a quick message from our sponsor.
For years, I've been saying that you have to process your way to profitability, and no one knows that better than the folks at Repair 360. You all know how important it is to have a fast, streamlined used car reconditioning process. Remember, time kills profit. Getting a used car frontline ready in less time while providing transparent communication between departments is what Repair 360 is all about. With Repair 360's automated used car recon manager, you will drive recon times down while giving sales the visibility they need to stop complaining. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about that part. Anyways, you have to check out their website at repair360.com and see how they can revolutionize your reconditioning process.
All right, guys. Like I said, I have a very, very great guest today. I am told I have the so famous, the one and only, all right? His team told me to say this. No, I'm just kidding. I have John Traver with me today. John, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Well, apparently I should be doing pretty well based on that. I don't earn any of those. It's awesome to be here with you, Jace. Man, we're fired up. Thanks for inviting us.
Yes, I am. Was that okay? Was that an okay intro? Did I hit it right?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Man, dude, I am excited. We got, hey, for everybody out there watching and listening, me and John have had some time now to actually just get like chit chat in the background and just like, guys, you better be in a place to take some notes. I'm just saying this. I want to start this podcast off with just like, if you're in the car, that's cool. I want you to listen to this, but there's definitely going to be some note taking elements in here. So make sure you're in a good place where you're able to do that. But here's what I want to do, John. I love kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story. I mean, because I'm fundamentally fascinated just how people find their way into this crazy little world we call the automotive industry. So, John, if you're cool, let's start there. How did you get started in the automotive industry?
Yes. Well, first of all, thanks for telling me this question was coming. Off screen, we chatted a little bit in the green room early. Jace has this sort of 3-bucket concept of how you get in the business. And I told him, well, I would be a combination of number 2 and number 3. So to your point, I kind of fell into the business, as some say, and I have this strange feeling there's many of us that do, right? I hear you sort of chiming in there. And then I was sort of coaxed into it. My girlfriend's dad told me that he saw something in me and he said I should come into the dealership and interview with him. And the last thing I wanted to do was sell cars. He ran a Honda store for a big dealer group in the Midwest. But he did have a parts driver job available, Jace. And it was summertime. I was working my way through college and I thought, man, that would be the job,
Just drive around, listen to music, deliver parts. That'd be fun, right?
Yes. And by the way, that was back in the day when you and I were sporting mullets, right? So, I mean, it would have been great. Anyway, I went in, I interviewed with Bob. He put in front of me the DISC, the dominance, influence, steadiness, compliance. For those that really know the tool, it's the Performax personal profile.
I love it.
I took it. He said, come on back tomorrow. I'm not sure what that was about, but I came back and he said, I got some good news and I got some bad news. And I said, okay. He said, the bad news first. He said, the parts driver job isn't available. He said, so we filled it. And I thought, okay, well then what's the good news? He said, the good news is you will make a great salesperson. And I felt my stomach sink. I was pretty sure he had misread the profile, but I just never really. And so I started thinking about Hondas, and so I said, so the Honda product I don't know a lot about. And he said, oh no, he said I could never have you work here. He said we have an opening at the Dodge store though up the street.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was being shipped down the river to, this is in the 80s, right? This is
Mhm.
1986. And that's where I would interview and eventually get my first start and sell. And that's how I got in the business, brother.
Dude, I mean, look, that's a fun time, actually. You know, when I think about Dodge, all right, and I think about all the different eras and time frames, right? I mean, look, you had okay, back then you would have had like the Dodge and Mitsubishi like alignment. So you would have had the Stealth, right? Remember the
Yes.
Stealth? Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that was hot, right?
Yes. I know
Um,
you were going
yeah,
Mitsubishi here.
right?
I
Oh, I
knew.
know because that was that time
Do you remember
frame.
the Montero?
Oh, yes, yeah, yeah,
The
right? Like
Montero, bud.
there was
And the
great,
Eclipse,
it was
which
great
was
collaboration.
eventually the Laser, the
Yeah,
Plymouth
the laser,
Laser.
the laser.
Yes.
Okay, wait a second. That would have been when Dodge did that Shelby collaboration. Do you remember the Shelby collaboration? It was on a
Yes.
what
Oh,
car?
yeah.
It was a horrible car too. It was like 170 horsepower K car or something. What was it? I can't remember the name of it. Do you remember?
Vaguely. I remember selling K cars and making 75 bucks. I remember selling the Omni America that we
There we
souped
go.
up. Yeah, the
Oh,
Omni
yes, the
America
Omni
that's what it
America.
was. Uh-huh.
That's what it was.
I
And the
had I had to
and
rattle
the
the old
Shelby,
cage there a little bit to find that one. That was
right?
in the
The
annals of
Shelby
history.
edition. Oh no, like hey man, that's a great time actually to be at a Dodge dealership. So that's fun. That's fun. But you know how it is. Once you're in this business, like it gets in you, it's in your blood. Like good luck getting it out. So no surprise to me that you made a career out of this and really kind of committed to it. And I'd love to kind of talk a little bit like what was the transition point for you from kind of the sales to the variables side? Because here today you're running and operating one of the largest, fixed ops support businesses. I would call you maybe more of like a fixed ops partner, businesses out there. Like, what was the transition, for you from kind of the sales to the variable side?
Well, I would say learning was my path, learning.
Mm, mm,
Um, so let's go back to that getting hired at the Dodge store. I was the youngest guy on the floor. Most of the guys around me are old enough to be my dad. I was kind of in a stupor, it's kind of like,
yeah,
what did I just do? Why am I doing? I know why I'm doing this. I got to pay my way through school, but I don't know why I said yes. The first week I didn't sell anything. I got called into the sales office on a Saturday. My girlfriend had come by and said hi. She had went to a wedding, and the GSM, Dick Hattenauer, rattled my cage, and he basically said, look, if you don't sell a car, we're going to fire you. And I think that's where my career started. The
mhm.
challenge, getting poked in the chest, I was respectful, but in my head, I might have had a conversation, right? And, I just thought, gosh, I guess I'm either in or out. I better just get in. And so I was able to sell a few cars that month. That was June of 86. July, I might have sold 14, 15 cars. I was salesman of the month in
There you go.
July. Um, it was enough to be salesman of the month. So that wasn't a great job. But what I found right away is that I wanted to compete. And so with myself, like I didn't want to just be a laggard. Well, at that time, Chrysler, Dodge, this was a Dodge store, but Chrysler had this basically this learning program. I remember these big discs, these CD discs that were like this big, 2 feet wide. And you'd stick them in a laser player and you'd
A
watch.
laser disc player. Yes. Yes,
You remember that?
yes, I do.
And you had to do this training. Well, they also had workshops. Well, remember, I'm in sales. So one
Mhm.
day the general manager's like, hey, John, we got this service workshop that somebody's got to go to and everybody's tied up. Can you go? Because we have to have somebody from the store represent us. I
Ooh.
became Mikey. You remember Life Cereal, brother? You
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
let's ask Mikey. He'll eat anything. I
Let's
became
ask John,
Mikey.
he'll do it.
He's going to college. Send Traver. He'll go. So I went to service workshops. I went to parts workshops, and I was a salesman.
So that's how you made the connection, right? Because that makes sense, right? Like you can see how all this now interconnects. That it's not just a one cell or two cells, but it's a holistic kind of thing. So okay. So you get into that. Now this makes sense. All right, continue.
So you just nailed it though. I mean, the fact that I could see the skeleton now, like
Mhm.
had I not done that, I'm not, but I'm curious by nature anyway. I want to know how things work. I want to understand the ecology of, you know, pretty much anything that I'm going to be involved in. I have multiple companies. This isn't the only company I have today. And I think that ability to see the skeleton, understand how things work together has probably helped me in that journey.
Yeah.
Um, and anything that I've worked to develop over the years, I also think that was like the way I was bent, the way I was made.
Mhm.
And so I tried to use that gift. Do you have to have that? If you don't have that gift, can you still? Absolutely. You just got to figure out what it is and migrate your way there. So what happened, Jason, is after a year, I understood the business. Like I had an advanced degree on how everything
Yeah.
worked. And so I end up, I'll tell you what happens. A little bit of time with F&I, sales manager, was fleet at the time.
Mm.
I did conversion vans, DMC conversions out of
That's
Milwaukee. They
awesome.
were a great conversion company. Um, but then I got to early 90s, and Pat Ryan was coming in with a organization called Automotive Development Center, ADC.
Mhm.
And the concept was they'd take 15,000 square feet of classrooms. They would go to local dealerships. You'd sign up based on the amount of cars you delivered each year is what you paid for your monthly tuition. And you could send anyone from the receptionist through the entire organization had classes and a calendar each month. And I just thought, wow, this is great.
That's
Because
cool.
I believed early that the best way to grow any business was to grow the people. And
Mhm.
growing them isn't done through that initial training program. It starts there, but growing is ing. Those are very important letters. It pluralizes
Yes.
that sort of journey, right? And so I was really excited. Well, I'm going to tell you something about that. Russ Darrow. So at this point, I forgot to tell you, I got hired by Russ Darrow as the director of corporate training out of the West Bend
So
offices.
now you're really getting deep into it. Now you're really getting behind the curtains and stuff. All
Yep,
right.
I'm
Yeah.
doing service and parts and
Yeah.
advisor training and 5 o'clock I buy pizzas. Okay, now we're going to do cutaways of tires and hoses and we're going to build our own upsell board and all. Seriously, I mean this
Love it.
was that's sort of what was happening and so what was great about it was forget the content for a second. What you're learning is you're learning how people learn.
Exactly.
If you're committed to teaching, you're going to be equally committed to the student, right? And you can see in their body language, their eyes. Fast forward years later, I married, have kids. Now I'm coaching multiple little league teams. When we would coach cover three, bunt, defense, you got a third baseman's got to crash, and I got 9-year-olds that half of them are scared to death, and
Yeah.
the other half, are somewhere else, right? And I used to say, we're going to rotate everybody there. We're going to teach them what cover three is. But the players that I knew that I could trust were the ones that
Mm.
asked questions. They were
Yeah.
the ones that would go right here, coach, like the distance to crash. And so I knew that kid was truly trying to learn. And I think that was sort of what was happening for me early at Rustero is I could tell who was engaged. I could tell maybe who was just checking the box. And if you were checking the box, I would never check out on you. I
No, no, and I can totally see now the connection, kind of going back to this incredibly large BDC business that you built, right? That your ability to kind of identify, who the people that really had the intentionality to play the game, and the ones that didn't. I'm one of those dealers that I went and built my own internal BDC, and I learned how incredibly difficult and how much insane work and turnover and training and development and technology and everything that had to go into it. I 100% see the value in handling that business outside, right? I mean, we were talking a little bit about this earlier. In fact, this is a perfect segue kind of into our first topic actually today, because we're talking about just like team alignment, and just that singular element. All right. And just how like, all right, John, I'm going to admit something to you. All right. I when I became a manager, I was not a good manager. Like I'm gonna tell you right now, like dude, I was the first one to say, "Suck it up, Buttercup. Check it out the door. Shut the fuck up and get back to work, right? Like that, honest, because that's how I saw management. That's what the manager I had. That's how I was. So I just assumed that's what you did. Nobody told me when I became a manager that I had to become a leader and thus actually, lead people into a mission of getting something done. I just told you, I thought you just yelled at people and told them to shut up and get back to work. I thought that was how you did it. Right. So I want to kind of get your thoughts because I know this is a core part of the way you built your business, but also kind of a core part of, what dealerships need to do right now to be more effective is just what's the mission? How do we map it? And how do we get everyone to buy into it?
All right. All right. I'm going to split this one. So you just said, what's the mission? The operative word here is mission. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to answer that in just a sec, but I'm going to use mission for BDC and its origin.
Sure.
So when I was at Darrow, we had a general manager, Jim O'Meara, who had a lot of Irish in him, by the way. But Jim was a John Traver fan. I mean, I had no axe to grind with Jim. Jim got fired. And so we had an opening in one of our stores. I'm corporate trainer, so I'm overseeing training operations for the entire group. There's probably 10 stores, 12 stores at the time.
Mhm.
And so I'm running the store, and it's a horrible store, Jason. I mean, it's in downtown West Bend. It was built in 1966. It's a one-car showroom, leaky roof. I mean, it was a Toyota store in West Bend. Not a good time. But I knew that, I kind of had an X on my back because it was like, oh, here's the corporate training guy. Let's see if this guy can he still, square him up?
Yeah. Can he still do what he's teaching? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where business development practice for me came, because what I was seeing in the stores is I saw high turnover.
Mhm.
With salespeople. All right. Why? I'll tell you why. Because they made the bulk of their living off of fresh ups.
Yes.
That was it. And
Sure.
I'm like, okay, where's the leadership? You just said it. Okay, so do you see the mission happening
Mhm.
here? And so I'm saying, okay, in a simple phrase that everybody in the house is going to understand, I'm going to use this phrase: quality showroom traffic. Quality showroom traffic, not just ups, but
Exactly.
quality. So what's the difference? Well, quality showroom traffic would usually be something that looks like an appointment. And an appointment, if you just landed here from Mars, would be somebody who knows they're coming in, knows who they're working with, has an assumption that the person they're working with understands them and what their needs are, and is going to be prepared for them when they get there. Therefore, the results are going to be a little different. They're going to close at a higher rate. They're going to gross at a better number. The
Yeah.
CSI is going to be better. It's going to take me less time. And the likelihood of them using me again is also very high. So, in a perfect world, I would only do my business with those people. But it's not a perfect world. So, the question is, how do we get there? And so, my journey for business development, Tom Stuker already had a phone room in the 80s. And I think Tom had some really good ideas.
Sure.
I didn't do Tom Stuker's seminars, or it really wasn't about Tom Stuker. This was about what I saw that was a little different. The
Mhm.
phone room at the time was different than what I was trying to build. I was like, okay, I need a manager for this area. So that was the BDM. And that's why
Mm.
I called it business development manager. And I said, okay, I think that person, once I have a year or so with that person, they're going to know how to speak more intelligently, meaning fielding objections, price, don't have the vehicle, not just on the phone, but face to face. Because when you can do this on the phone, guess what? It's just like how you practice this week translates this weekend in football. It's the same
Exactly.
thing. So I saw these people as future leaders, and I can name names: Bill Carmichael, Mark
Yes.
Rogers,
Great.
um, uh, Ron Campbell. These are people that went on to run organizations,
Mhm.
big named organizations, or have their own dealerships today. And they started with the principles of business development. So that was the vision. So what's funny is I'll sit down with people today that will shoot holes in BDC, and the only thing we have in common are the three letters. But their
Right?
definition of BDC is a completely different mission. So now let's answer your question. You
Actually,
said,
I gotta jump in 1 second because I love finding a rabbit hole. So you'll find sometimes I go squirrel. All right, I'll go squirrel on you, right? Because I really think everybody out there watching and listening needs to just kind of take a moment and really just kind of chew what John just said here. Because I am 100% with you on this thesis. It is frustrating to me to see how many business development centers out there are truly not developing business. And the KPIs that they're using for measurement is absolutely ridiculous. Look, in 2010, as a general manager, I decided to just fundamentally stop measuring leads. I just didn't give a crap. I didn't care how many leads I had coming into my dealership. The number I cared about, and the only number I really kind of cared about, was how many conversations, meaningful conversations, was my staff able to produce. And again, I hired my staff because of their ability to have a conversation, not to work some 75-day CRM scripted whatever, right? Like I hired them because of their ability to connect, build rapport, and have a conversation. And still, I find today business development centers are being measured off of ridiculous KPIs, not the KPIs that matter. And I just wanted to drive that home for everybody out there watching, listening. That's what John's saying here. And maybe if you're running a BDC right now, you need to be kind of really taking a look is how much of those activities are actual development activities. Because another one I see too often is really a call center. 90% of their efforts is actually incoming, not actually outbound. But I know you're going to get into that, John. But like really, really question yourself, am I running a development center? Am I just really running a call center? Sorry, John, go ahead. Continue.
This is good. This is good. And, there's a guy named Alan Kay that was a software developer for Microsoft, 1980.
Mhm.
And you got to remember Windows that you and I are working in right now as we shoot this show. We got these windows in our screens, right? That development started with a partnership between Xerox, had the first version of it. Apple partnered with Xerox to further it. And then Microsoft countered and said, we need a Windows environment. So if you ever want to study the history of that, why is that important? Alan Kay was a senior developer, and he made a statement that I ride this horse often, Jason, and it's this: perspective is worth 80 points on the IQ. And that's what's happening even in this discussion is, if the average IQ in the US is 100, which that's statistically what it is, it's like, it's like a 97.4 or a 101.2, whatever, call it 100.
Yeah.
80 points makes you a pretty special mind. Okay. Or you could be a pretty sorry soul in terms of your IQ and blend in perfectly. My point is, perspective is how you look at things. And so in order to have what you just did is you added a perspective to that. And by the way, there may be people listening to us right now that say, I don't quite see it that way. Great. What's your perspective?
Exactly.
But the end is the mission. The mission, if we're in the military, the mission is what? Take that hill. But we're not in the military right now. We're in the workforce. We're out here in the marketplace. So what is a mission and how is it different? I'll tell you right now, a mission is why. So why, what I saw, brother, was I saw salespeople turning over that were good people, and they had a bad diet. The reason they were sick financially, the reason they were sick in their career is nobody set them up for success.
No.
And so they didn't have to have all appointments, but come on, man, you got to understand. So I began to develop simple little routines that would allow them to get there, like 3-2-1. What was 3-2-1? 3 scheduled every day. We're going to set 90 minutes aside. We'll run the phone ups in here. So that means you may or may not grab a few phone pops while you're in here. When you walk in, we'll have a daily marketing plan ready to go. These are your follow-ups. Carry forward. We'll put some software together so you got all that. We'll have letters of correspondence. I want to treat you like a business person because you are. I want to have you sign your letters of correspondence. We're going to teach you actually how to put wrinkles to that.
Yeah.
For example, I would teach them always sign your name. It's already printed out. So it could be like, thanks for your visit last week, or anniversary of a sale, or you get it. But I would always say, always do a handwritten note. Jason, hope all's well, JT. And so the only thing when Jason opens that, he might not even read the letter, but he will see the handwritten note. It was simple stuff like this where I was trying to elevate, first of all, their own perspective of what they were doing. Like, hey, brother, your sister, you're making a difference. What you do matters. Raise your level of play, level up, all that, right? But also, if you schedule 3 a day, 2 are going to show. and one's going to roll. That means every day we're selling a car every day. So if you were a 10 car a month guy or gal, was I trying to make you a 20 car a month guy? Not directly. I was trying to make you better.
For sure.
And then whatever the number was, if you're 8 cars a month, we can get you to 20. So I would say to the dealer, I'd say, look, not everybody's going to be 20 just because of how life is. But if we can add 4 or 5 cars to everybody here, you understand what that means. And of course, any good dealer understood what that meant quickly. So with the dealers, I had a different talk. I said, listen, I said, when you turn the lights on, you know what you just spent, right?
Exactly.
Jace, you had your own stores.
I know exactly what my nut was every
So
month.
you knew what you're burning daily for insurance, mortgage, the whole, okay, great.
Down to the hour.
Okay, so I remember, okay, let me tell you a quick story. I had 1 or 2 trainers. This is early on at Traver Technologies, the company I sold to ADP in 2000, which was the original BDC with the software and all that. So I was struggling. The guys were coming back, the 2 trainers I had, and they were kind of had their hat in hand. They're like, man, getting our butts kicked. And, we get to the store and there's no one. Jason Harris is there and he tells me to go upstairs and train the guys. And Jason doesn't want to play. It wasn't Jason. I'm just messing with him.
I know what you mean, though. I know exactly what you're
But and I'm literally in my head, right? I'm like, Traver, you better figure this out. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to do a management awareness conference. And so
like that.
I get on the phone, I make some calls. Chris Garrett was the general manager and really the platform guy for John Elway Group in Denver. And we had all their stores. And he was tough, man. He made me better. I mean, he was tough. He was one of former Chicago dealer. You know what I mean? Like he was tough, but we liked each other. Like we got past tough. And so he's like, okay. He goes, you're buying the tickets though. So I paid for his guys to fly to this event. So I have the first event. This is pretty humble beginnings.
Yeah.
I had my wife cook, breakfast and lunch, and it's a 1-day event. I got everybody cramped in a room. There's 20 some people there. And I got Vic Vaughn sitting right in the front row. And Vic will tell you, I mean, his patience was like that. And I'm thinking, well, Traver, you better open this up well because you're going to lose them if you don't. And so this is what I said. I said, well, times like this are precious. So let me cut right to the chase. You won't need to know everything about BDC. And I can't possibly teach you everything about BDC in a day anyway. But what you're going to know in the first 30 minutes is going to change how you retail. And the very first thing I want to share with you that you have to walk out of here with, I'm going to tell you in the next 5 minutes. So now I had it blocked down and I said, it's 2 words, appointment ratio. Write that down. I said, there's 3 ratios we're going to talk about in here. And then I'm going to show you how everything we do fits in these ratios. A 1-to-1, a 2-to-1, and a 3-to-1. So the first number is the number of salespeople you have on your floor. So if you have 10 salespeople on your floor, a 1-to-1 would be 10 salespeople. And the second number is the number of confirmed appointments, Jason, when you turn those lights on, you see on the board for today.
Yep.
If you got 10, that's a 1-to-1.
Yep.
Jason, you could have the same 10 people, but you have 20. That's a 2-to-1, right? And I kind of inverted that. I'm sorry, but you get the idea. And then a 3-to-1 would be 3 confirmed. So I said, let me tell you the difference. 1-to-1, yes, you're going to sell some cars for sure. Those, if they're confirmed appointments, and we'll talk about how to confirm. But what we're trying to impact is turnover. We're trying to impact closing percentage. We're trying to impact gross profit. We're trying to impact CSI. Do any of those interest you? And that was heck to the yes, right? Okay, good. So now this is really about a process that gets us there.
Yes, there we go.
We got to find a way to do it. We want to draw it out of our people to where we're not pulling teeth. This isn't the business detention center. This is the business development center.
And business development doesn't, like, you have to be intentional about it, right? It doesn't happen just because you hit a magic easy button on it, right? And it moves forward, I mean, I just, again, one of the things is just, if you're out there watching and listening right now, if you're not being intentional, there's no way that you're going to be able to effectively create the processes that's going to lead you to profitability. And that's why I love times like this, right? I'm always that's one of my biggest theses is you got to process your way to profitability. It don't happen on itself, right? And you're sure in the hell not going to be able to effectively execute a mission among a group of people, either on the sales side or on the fixed ops side, if you don't have the processes in place to ultimately execute on it. Sorry. Anyways, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Well, I'm watching what we're doing here and I'm going, we haven't even gotten to fixed ops yet because there's a ton on the fixed ops side. But the origin of mission was why. Fixed ops has the same need today.
Of course.
Peter Drucker, the great philanthropy business leader for
Huge.
decades,
Yes.
um, he's got many great one-liners. When the facts are clear, the decisions will jump out at you. Pay attention to the bend in the trend. I mean, I subscribe to this
I
stuff, and it
know,
sounds
isn't
like you do too.
it? Dude, I got a couple of them tattooed on me. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Well, next time you bring you show the tattoo, as long as it's decent, not
Right.
indecent. So he wrote a book called "The Five Essential Questions Every Business Must Answer or Ask." And I'll just tell you what they are real quick.
Mhm.
Question one is, what is our mission? Question two is, who is our customer? Question three is, what is our customer value? Question four is, how are we doing? And question five is, what is our plan as a result of how we are doing?
Yes.
And that's a cycle that you just never stop. So whether it was the sales BDC or now service business development initiatives, whether we're holding our Experience Matters courses here for leaders, executive
Mhm.
leaders in dealerships, or BDMs, or we're doing remote training for agents that are landing in stores, or for our own people that help assist stores get the shop loaded on a regular basis. One of the big gaps I see today, and I need to share this with you, is the process itself. There's zero question in my mind, whatever's broke in business development can be fixed. Zero.
100%.
I don't care what
Yep.
your situation is, it can be fixed. The key though is there are other things that prevent business development from reaching its potential that you should be aware of. One of those today is the technician shortage. In I'm a data guy.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, I use certain sources on a regular basis just because I'm looking for the bend in the trend, buddy.
Of
Like we
course.
just
Of
spoke.
course.
Um, NADA data book, I've always read. I mean, back to the Rustero days. And it's an annual summary. It's got it's got all the financial statements rolled up for the industry, most of them. But
Yeah.
you get this nice aggregate view. How many dealers, and by department. And so you can kind of see the business top down, kind of like when I
No.
was being asked to go to service and parts workshops as a salesperson. So anybody can look at this and begin to assimilate and go, okay, so what does this mean? So here's the problem we got. In 2016, 17, 18, and 19, we wrote over 300 million ROs in the United States through our
Mhm.
retail dealers. Every year, we broke 300. COVID happened, we wrote 267. I think most of us say, oh, yeah, sure, I get it. So let me ask you, if over time it was up and to the right, breaking 300 and continuing to go up to the right, yeah, a little bit of adjustments here and there, but continuing up and to the right, like a good stock, like a Costco stock.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And all of a sudden, if I told you, did you know that we are 45 million ROs south of that number, and we have been the whole time since 2019? Would it dawn on anybody to ask what happened to 45 million repair orders?
No kidding.
And so the problem, what's happened, let me tell you something. There's 17,000 rounded, I'm rounding numbers,
Yep. Yep.
16,000 and change, but 17,000 dealers in the US. Listen to me. We are one. We're competing against 160,000 repair facilities in the US. For one of us, there's 9 of them.
And I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, I get into this conversation all the time. I'm dumbfounded to find out still today how many service managers or directors I sit down to help maybe develop out marketing strategies to come find out that they think that their competition is the other Ford dealership down the street. And I'm like, we're not talking about the 16 other non-franchise entities that are fighting for the exact same oil change and maintenance business and so on and so forth, but I'm with you on this. I think like everything for me kind of breaks down to three categories. It is usually a people, process, or a technology, and it's usually in one of those categories that is broken, hence the reason we're not hitting the profitability levels that we can be, right? And sometimes it could be a technician shortage. Hey, it could be a piece of technology that actually doesn't even work because it got hacked. Whatever it is, it always seems to fall into one of those three categories. But now, and I think this is a perfect segue kind of to our next topic that we were talking about earlier of like, who is our customer? Because I mean, how many people out there are running shops and thinking that, it's the people that right in front of me in my database are my customers, and we're forgetting there's an entire world out here. And I know you got thoughts on this, so I'll let you kind of take it from there.
Yeah, rapid fire. 82% of the customers we work with have anxiety about coming to the dealership for service. That's
Hell
who our
yeah,
customer
makes
is.
sense.
65% are female. Um, Most of them can get into an independent between 1 and 3 days. And here's the bad news: we're averaging over a week as retail stores, over a week. So
Mm-hmm.
the degradation of loyalty, you and I are so aligned on the loyal. We could just do a podcast just on that.
I think we should.
Anytime, anytime. And I love learning too. I love learning from other perspectives. Your example of having the Nissan dealer within 3 miles, but you're not. It's not about retention. It's just convenient for you, but
It's
you're not
close to me.
loyal.
Oh no, I mean, in fact, actually, I'm not even necessarily overly happy with the results I get from them. I mean, it's like, I love the fact that they're always leaving crap in my car. They love leaving that dirty, filthy little piece of paper at the bottom that I have to go find some place to throw it away in. They've never once been on time with any type of time slot of when the vehicle's actually going to be ready. But I go there because, it's a few miles up the road and versus me, going halfway across the other city. But they think probably based on their data that I'm a loyal customer. That's not the case. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
The question on why loyalty, if one is jumping in this conversation, say, well, we're doing great. We're
Yeah.
netting X amount of dollars a year, and there's no pain. And why is loyalty so important? Well, for starters, in most businesses, the most expensive part of the business is acquiring the customer.
A huge expense. I know that. I do a lot of the marketing. Yep.
So there's a term in automotive called, it's an acrostic, UIOs, and it stands for units in operation. What is that? Those are people who you wrote a check to, and in today's money, it runs over $600 a car advertising cost,
Mm-hmm.
6.25 per NADA. So $625. So if we spend 100 grand a month in advertising, or 60 grand a month in advertising, we sell 100 cars, we spend $600 a car. Okay. So that just simple math, how we get there. So if you wrote the check and now we have the relationship, they're driving your vehicle, right? That came out of your store, then in theory, you would nurse that investment over time. It's like buying a boat, putting it in the slip. I know you live on a lake, but I
No,
can't imagine you not going down and breaking off that key and going out on the water, right? The idea
I'll
is,
probably do it after this call. Actually, here I'm going to throw one real quick at you, John, because I think you're going to get a kick out of this. I to my success, I had some amazing mentors. So I really do credit a lot of my success over the years in the automotive industry to some amazing mentors that are mine. I had one tell me when I bought my first dealership. He goes, "All you need to do is sell 5,000 cars." Really? Because I plan on doing a lot more than that. He goes, "No, that's all you need to do. You will build if done correctly, you will build a huge business just on that." Anyways, go ahead, John.
well, that person's mindset, he or she, they obviously understood, you know, the customer first,
Yeah.
and they worked their way back, right? Because if you do it right, that's the value of loyalty, is you can, but you don't have to write the check. But if you don't, you have to write the check. Next point,
Yes.
per vehicle retail advertising costs, I knew back in the late 80s, as I looked at those numbers, I'm like, well, that number's always going to go up.
Mhm.
That there was never going to be a time my ad agency is going to show up and say, hey, great news. They've cut rates in half, and things are, when we migrated from print and TV and radio pretty much to digital, it's not like rates went down. They said, well, they'll already say yes to this amount. So we know we got that much juice to work with. True or false,
Yeah,
Jason?
100%. Absolutely.
It's not about cost. It's about
No,
what
not
the
at all.
wallet will bear. And so that sucker has always walked up and to the right. So you have this born cost, and you only got so much room to make money in new cars.
Yes.
There have only been a few years in the last 20 where new car departments historically remain profitable in this country, right? So,
Some worse than others right now. I mean, I'm sorry, guys. If you're a Stellantis dealer out there and you're watching and listening, my heartfelt apologies. Go. No, I'm just kidding.
hey, hey, I mean, it's tough. It's tough.
Right?
And so that's the thing, is when you can see sort of the direction of the business in this
Mhm.
case, um, then you have a chance to re-strategize and say, what's the right way to do this? And it's like you said, buddy, it's, if you sold 5,000 cars at that point and you kept those customers, guess
Exactly.
what? It's a machine. And so, can you actually execute that perfectly? No. Should I still go out and attempt to do it? Yes.
That's
Yes.
the
Because if
mission.
you miss by a mile, you're still going to crush it.
Yes. And I think that's what's key about that, right? Is understanding, really kind of what my ultimate objectives are. And I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time here, but I think if you kind of listen to the entire conversation that me and John have been having here, there are a few things that really need to be, kind of highlighted. Look, what are your processes? Are they effectively documented? I'm sure you see this too, John. It's still one of the things that really kind of rub me the wrong way. I mean, with even like things like as simple as like ChatGPT and other tools out there, I don't believe there's an excuse in the world for anybody not to have some level of documented process, right? Because if we don't have those processes, I can't effectively make the mission to go execute on those processes. So like again, you're leading you're letting your leadership team just really just fall right there on their faces, if you don't have those documented processes and if they can't create a mission off of that. And then again, we really do have to have a real conversation of who is our customer, because I think as an industry, we're still just very, we have our blinders on. I don't know if you like horse racing, but we have our blinders on, and it's just like we're looking only at a singular group of people when there is a whole world of individuals out there. And it's just like, and again, and then lastly, guys, retention. I understand it's one of the biggest indicators that your manufacturer wants to talk about, but I'm gonna tell you right now, as just from business owner to business owner, and I'd love to, John, to get your perspective on this too. It is not the end all be all KPI. All right. I would trade retention over a loyal customer any day of the week. All right. They're the ones that are going to keep coming back and service me. They're the ones that are going to be talking to their friends and family about me. All right. They're the ones that are going to come and buy multiple vehicles from me over multiple generations. It's like our objective, our mission in an industry, both on the variable side and on the fixed op side, is to create more loyal customers. John, I'd love to kind of give you a few minutes for kind of final thoughts before we let everybody go.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to piggyback that last part. Retention versus loyalty is, I think, would equate it to these next two words: control versus effect. So if you want retention, it's really a game of control, and you got to constantly go get it, and you can.
Mhm.
But loyalty is an effect that you have on people, and you can release it, and they just continue to come back to you. And it's very much like educating your team, developing your squad.
Mhm.
As you said, you talked about documenting processes. There's a great book Gino Wickman wrote years ago, 2010, called Traction. Read it.
Great book.
Yep, you read it. Good. And so when I think of documenting, there's some people that throw up in their mouth when they hear you say that, right? So we would say to those people, hey, hold on a sec. You don't have to do War and Peace or Moby Dick, the long version. Just document 20% of the steps that get you 80% of the way there. Do you remember that in Traction,
Yep,
Jason?
100%. That's it. I mean, you don't need to eat it all.
It's one page. And you go, John, it's a 10-page process. Great. Give me the one pager that gets me 80% of the way there, bullet points. Okay. And so once you have that, what you'll find is this whole thing can begin to take off. But cause and effect is the difference between retention and loyalty. Loyalty is your opportunity to reduce cost of sale, to increase revenue. Remember, there's only three ways to grow any business: more customers, more dollars per transaction. So more transactions, more dollars per transaction, or more transactions per customer. And when you got all three humming, you got a machine.
You do.
What's that old saying? Somebody once said, I don't know who said it, but that's why they call it a dealership, not a dealer store. You're captain of your ship. Your crew is counting on you to navigate this sucker and keep it off the icebergs, et cetera, and get us a safe course successfully. So never ending journey, right?
That is a beautiful analogy and a perfect way to kind of finish up. And guys, I know that there's going to be another recording with me and John, because I think there's a whole nother subset of conversations that you probably heard us maybe heading down, but we didn't necessarily finish. But boy, has there just been some depth in today's conversation. For John, for everybody out there maybe watching and listening right now who would maybe like to connect or learn more about Traver Connect, funny enough, play on words. What's the best way to do so?
Well, traverconnect.com, Traver, right? And then hit me on LinkedIn. And if there's a way I can help you, even if it's pointing you in the right direction, say the word. We're happy to do it.
I love it. I love it. John, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this today. And for everybody out there, we appreciate your time in watching and consuming the show. And by the way, if you would like to give me and John a little compliment, I'll tell you the best way you can compliment us is share the show. Okay. If you got a friend or a colleague or a manager or an owner that needs to listen to some portion of today's conversation, there is no better compliment that any content creator can ever get when you share the show. All right. Thanks again for everybody and for your time again, John. This has been a blast. I'm sure we'll be doing this soon. You all have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.